to Live With, brought to you by Species Nutrition. Visit speciesnutrition.com. I'm Dave Palumbo, and we're here today with the mad scientist himself, my good friend Ameen Alai. Welcome back.
How are you, man? It's good to hear from you again.
Good. Yeah, we had you on the other day and with Roger Stone, and I want to just give you complete credit because a lot of people ask me, how the heck, first of all, people didn't know who he was, and then when they watched the interview, it was so good. They were like, how did you get Roger Stone? And I'm like, don't give me any credit. It was all Ameen. Ameen, how did you meet Roger?
How did I meet Roger? Okay, so Olympus Gym was the gym, like back around our area, the Northern Virginia, Maryland, D.C. area. Kamali trained there. Wrestler Dave Batista trained there.
Sure.
And Roger liked to work out where it was a real gym. He liked the energy. He liked to, he liked to be around real people so he could push some weight. He didn't want to be in a personal training studio, which is a lot of times where he was prior to coming to Olympus. And his wife, Nydia Stone, who was Ronald Reagan's photographer, so that's how Roger and her go back. Her personal trainer was Jennifer Greenbaum, female bodybuilder who won the overall junior nationals that you'd competed in the DC area.
1995, yeah, I remember that. Richard Greenbaum was her
husband.
Who trained him, who trained her rather. And didn't he also train Titus for a while?
He did. Now here's the story behind that. So in 1994, I was training Craig for the nationals. Now he wasn't going to do it, but he saw King Kamali at the collegiates, and he said, how much will it cost for you to make me look like him by the nationals? And nobody else knew he was going to compete. He came in second to Newman at the USA's. We would logically think he was going to be the next to win the USA's. Well, after seeing Kamali's condition at the collegiate nationals, which was outstanding, it was the first time anyone had walked on stage as the Terminator. I mean, it truly was his moment.
Right.
And when he did that, Titus saw that he wanted that sort of stage, some sort of stage presence that could be, and he was already good at posing. If you remember him winning Iron Man or coming, but he wanted something more. He wanted, and Craig was very arrogant. He really thought he was the best. So you had to really prove that you were better than him. Craig and I actually met because he heckled me because he wasn't at the weigh-ins. Kamali did the weigh-ins, and he looked absolutely amazing. He was actually 10 pounds heavier the day before. We weighed in, and he told me, he goes, I told you I was a heavyweight. This is before super heavies. And I said, listen, man, this show is tomorrow. And he goes, 10 pounds? I mean, really? 10 pounds? I'm going to lose 10 pounds overnight? I said, you let me worry about that. And so he weighed in exactly 198.25. And I got to tell you, Dave, no bullshit. I was like praying. I was like, because I had told him for 6 months he was going to be top of the class light heavy. But to make someone be 198.25 exactly, and he was literally 10 pounds heavier on that same scale. So he looked incredible. Everybody there, Gary Udick, all of them, everyone there, they knew that this guy was the one that was going to win the show. He looked incredible. He had that dry look to him that you just don't see these days. Craig Titus wasn't there. So when we were at the athletes meeting, Molly was sleeping in the audience, and I saw Craig Titus wearing shades, and indoors wearing shades.
Like you, right now.
Yeah, like me right now. But there was a reason why he was wearing shades. There's a reason why I am too. It's not the same reason. Anyway, so he's coming through, and I wanted to meet him. I was young. At that time, I had helped Don Long, but Don Long wasn't really famous like Craig Titus was. Craig he had more covers because of his looks. He had more covers, I think, than anybody at that time. I don't know about now, but at that time, Mike O'Hearn was doing really well too. So that was the look that was selling a lot of magazines. And I introduced myself to him, and I said, and this is my arrogant ass. I was really arrogant when I was young. I said, I'm Ameen Alai. I said, I've worked with Don Long. You may know him. He cracked the top 5 of the nationals last year as a heavyweight. And then immediately he looked down, and I said, and I'm training the guy who's going to win this show. And then he put his glasses down, and he looked at me. He says, "Who are you?" Like that. And I said, "My name is Ameen." And I said, "And that's my client, and he's going to win this show." And he said, "Well, you know who I am." I said, "Yes, you're Craig Titus." He goes, "Okay, well, we'll see about your guy winning the show. I think my guy's going to beat your guy." That's what he said. And I said, "I'll be sitting right there." He actually came with his friend and sat behind me and started heckling me before Kamali came on. Like, this motherfucker thinks that, he's going to beat, I forget the name of the heavyweight guy. The guy looked phenomenal. I don't want to take anything away from him. He really did look good. And when he saw, and mind you, his guy was a heavyweight, so Kamali came out first. When he saw Kamali hit the stage and turn around and flex his tree with his glutes like a robot and move, boom, like the quarter turns. The quarter turns, Dave. He did the quarter turns like a fucking robot.
I know. I remember, yeah.
And literally, Titus pushed over Kamali's cousin, pushed him over out of the seat, jumped in the seat right next to me and says, "How much will it cost me to look like that for the Nationals in 9 weeks?" It was like 9 weeks. He goes, "Can I fly you to Denver next week?" I flew to Denver the following week. I charged him, I think it was a ridiculous amount of money, but I was young, so it was a lot of money to me. I guess these days, like, compared to what Hani charges, it wasn't. But anyway.
How much was it?
Yeah, it was on the spot. It was a lot of money. I did not know what he did.
How much did you charge him, I mean?
I charged him $6,500, and then all expenses paid.
Wow, that is a lot.
It is a lot. He listen, man. He was heckling me. I wanted to stick it to him. I honestly, and he knew it. But here's the thing, though. He was very boisterous about his lifestyle, to the point where it was stupid. Like, we got back to Kamali's room, and he started doing coke right there in Kamali's room. Lines of
right in front of you?
Lines of coke. Listen, I don't have anything bad to say. I'm just telling you the truth.
Right,
this is what happened, And, obviously Kamali wasn't too happy about it. He just wins the whole show. And then this guy who he doesn't fucking even, this is why they hate each other, by the way. Whatever else they tell you is not, it's bullshit. This is it.
Really?
They didn't even know, they met each other that night, okay? And King was pissed off because it was his night, and Craig was talking about him doing the Nationals, and he wouldn't shut up because he was high on coke. Right. So I had to basically be like, "Look, man, this is what it's going to cost, and tonight's King's night. Beat it.
That's good. I didn't know that story.
Yeah. And so literally, I flew to Houston, and that's when I found out everything about Craig. And if you want to, are we going to talk about? You want to know?
Yeah, well, you might as well. You brought it up. I mean, we'll come back to Richard Greenbaum in a minute, but let's keep talking about Craig.
Yeah, we will, because in the sequence of things, actually, Richard's coming up. So what happened was, I get to Houston, I get picked up. Craig's driving a normal car, a Honda Accord. We get to his house. His house is nice. He's going out with Debbie Halo. Okay. Debbie Halo's nice, very nice. And we are going to I'm hanging out with him. So we go to the restaurant that cooks all of his food. He tells him that he wants everything, because I told him what to have. And then he started taking me to a restaurant. I said, "Dude, where are we going?" He goes, "Listen, they cook everything the way I say." And he goes, if you say that they don't, then I won't do it. And I was like, all right. I was real critical too. Yeah. He literally had them. He dropped off his chicken. They cut his shit. They cooked his shit.
Oh, really?
I mean, it was really like beyond. It wasn't like their chicken. He went beyond, and he didn't give a fuck. He paid them. And this is when I saw it. He whipped out like this much money.
Oh, wow.
To pay for a meal that costed like 2 pieces of paper, whatever increments it would have been. Yeah. 20, okay? And no normal person would do that. Now, I'm young, but I'm not stupid. Right. So instantly I'm like, okay, drug dealer.
Right.
Drug dealer. Okay. Now, mind you, Craig didn't let people know he was a drug dealer at this time. This is 1994, okay? Sure. Nobody knew about Craig Titus and dealing drugs at that point. Am I right?
I didn't know. I wasn't aware of that. Yeah.
Okay, so this is crazy, but this is how all this shit ties in. And I don't think I've ever told anyone this, so here you go. We're all past the time where it's actually going to make a damn bit of difference.
Right.
So Craig puts me on the phone with some guy to talk to him about taking some gear and stuff. And that guy, I found out later, that guy was the guy that was setting him up, and that call was recorded.
Oh, no, really?
Craig had that later on that evening. Craig had some friends come over. I come to his garage. He says, if you want to come see this is pretty cool. Now, mind you, I never once said this is crazy. I'm there. I'm young. I'm rolling with it.
Right, you're having a good time, I'm sure.
I'm having a great time. I mean, we're going to get into where he collected money in a minute because that was unreal.
Well, Craig is let's put it this way. Craig was a fun guy to be around. Don't get me wrong.
He was a really fun guy to be around. Now, I stopped hanging out with him, and I'll tell you why. And then I heard that things changed. But when I hung out with him, and when you in 94, early 95, that's when he was cool. And he got in trouble. So it all stemmed from this. So the people that came to his house, they popped their trunk, and in their trunk, they had the large duffel bags, the very, very large duffel bags, and it was full of ecstasy. Full. I mean...
How many pills?
In the millions, but all the bags totaled up were in the millions.
Wow.
And then there were some... Then at that point, I know there was only one other person that came by. That's it. One person came by. The majority of it was gone at that point. Now, the next day, we went to about 6 strip clubs. All of them were high-end. Mm-hmm. I just walked in with him. Didn't make a difference what we were wearing, but there was a dress code. We were in the VIP. He's doing lines off naked girls.
While he's preparing for the Nationals, right?
While he's prepping for the fucking Nationals. Yeah. This is all like right when I get there. I haven't even had a chance to really tell him, can't fucking do this, dude. This isn't going to work. Like, this is part of the program. And it gets good. So this isn't even a good part. It gets even better. So then Craig is picking up money from girls and, doing his thing, but he never missed a meal. And I never saw Dave, I've never seen anything like it to this day, that a person could do cocaine or be so physically addicted to it that they could do the cocaine and literally eat right afterward. And this was not shitty cocaine. I mean, the people he was getting the cocaine from, it glistened. I mean, it was like pearlish color. I mean, it was the real deal that people got in the 80s. No one had stomped on it or whatever you want to call it, because he was so high up in the ladder in the other game that he got the best of everything.
Sure.
And he had money, and that's what he more indulged in apparently than the pills that he was selling. So he got in trouble for that, and they never actually went through the process of sentencing him, or they put him on an extended period of time, the feds who arrested him, because all that shit was set up. I don't know exactly how it went down, but I know that was the initiation of all that bust, because he told me later what had happened. And then he went around the country setting up everybody he knew.
Oh, so he cooperated with them, so they never really arrested him.
Yeah, he cooperated big time, and that's when I stopped talking to him. Richard kept helping him. Him and Richard became good friends. And Richard and I stayed friends, but I didn't want to help Craig anymore. And this is why. At the Nationals, I helped him. I told him, listen, man, you can't do cocaine and get ready for a show. I mean, you can. I mean, apparently you can, but it wasn't part of my program. Okay?
Right.
And so he admitted to me that he had a problem. Uh-huh. And so what we decided to do was have him come to me. He stayed with me in Alexandria, Virginia for a month before his show to kick his cocaine habit, where I would have full attention on him. I'd be able to watch him. Craig was a great cook. He cooked all my food. He cooked all his food, and then he cooked all my food.
Oh, wow.
He cooked everything in a wok. He was extremely clean, very, very neat, very clean, very polite. When my girlfriend at the time would come over, he treated her very nice. He treated my mother very nice. You know, drugs can really affect people. I don't, you know, the drugs that he started doing, from the cocaine then, and then he stopped. And like I said, when I brought him around my mother, he had been clean off the cocaine and all that, you know. There are some pictures that I took of him. I told him, I said, the deal is you come to me, I get it, I understand you're addicted. You come to me, I get you clean. You either do it or you don't. If you don't, you leave, that's fine. Okay? If you do it my way, and then afterward it's your business. Now, Dave, you remember Nubane?
Yeah, oh yeah.
Okay, well, in 1994, Craig did not know what it was. Very few people did in 94. I knew what it was. I didn't know that it was addictive. I didn't say anything about it in the pamphlet because when you read the insert, it was basically for short-term use of burn victims, or, you know, anything that it was a opiate-like opioid, which
They even gave it to pregnant women. It's a very safe type drug.
They still do. They give it to pregnant women right now. It's one of the because it doesn't suppress the respiratory system,
right,
making it something that you could actually work out on. Now, I didn't know that Craig wouldn't stop doing it because I had really recently kind of been experimenting with it myself. I had not been physically addicted to it because my motto was I didn't do anything more than a couple days without taking a few days off. So that was my whole thing.
And that was a Dan Duchaine drug. Dan Duchaine really brought that to market. I mean,
it was definitely one of the ones he spoke about. I think I probably experimented with all of them at one point or another in cadavers. But so he started doing the Nubane to get through the carb depletion. He was able to do the cardio. He was able to do the zero carbs. He was able to do the drop sets, the 100. He did everything he was supposed to do. And, you know, we got down to the show. He looks incredible. You know, of course, if I say this, it's going to sound biased, but I have to say this because it is the truth. He looked incredible. He should have won. Not only should he have won, but there's a lot of circumstances that reason why he didn't, but I think Paul DeMeo, who did win the show, he didn't have good enough color, for one. Okay, he wasn't conditioned. He was huge. He was massive. Okay, there's no question about it. But he had no lines from the rear. Yeah. And I mean, this is the prejudging. Dave, you were there.
I was there. First show I ever watched, a national show. Yeah.
And he, you know, everybody. He didn't look like he didn't have any paint on. Now, I was shocked because they kept moving him around with Don. It was Craig, Don, and Paul, and they kept switching Paul and Don, or, you know, Craig and Don. And I was like, Craig's got this shit in the bag. You know, Don's second and DeMeo's third. Don looked really good, and that's not what happened. So at the night show, right after prejudging.
Let's frame it like this. It was DeMeo's show. Everyone knew it. He looked great. Maybe he wasn't his best, but it was his time. He won the show. And so what does Craig do? Was Craig depressed after this?
Craig is a little bit upset. You can see him at the night show. He has a film of water on him. He drank a 2-liter of soda and ate 2 large Domino's pizzas right after prejudging, and went and took a nap. And he told me, he says, Ameen, don't worry about, long story short, at the end of it, it was come to Denver and you'll get your pro card. That's what Jim said. So Craig was like, okay, you know, all I have to wait for is till the USA's in Denver. I'll get my pro card there. No big deal. So we started talking about the off season and what he was going to do and all that. He starts getting ready. He like I said, he had between the prejudging and the night show, he had a 2-liter of soda, 2 large Domino's pizzas. And then, you know, he still did his posing routine really well. It was the Batman routine that originally I created for my brother, that we modified a little bit for Craig. You could YouTube Ameen Alai, and the video shows up from before Craig did it, but it was in the same year. And Craig's, he had the winner, and then we started getting ready for the show in Denver, the USA's. And as he starts preparing for the show in Denver, he looks incredible. He looks better than he ever has in his life before. He gets close down to the last 3 weeks, and he says, I don't really think I want to do the carb depletion to me. And I said, what do you mean? He goes, well, I'm pretty sure I'm going to win. I mean, you heard Jim, right? I don't see any reason why I should that intense of a workout for this. I can just do aldactone for a week, and I can look good. And I did that for the Ironman, and I told him, I said, Craig, if I'm glad you look good for the Ironman, but if you take aldactone for a week, you're going to block your ability for sodium to work, and without sodium, you can't get full. It doesn't matter, what, and that's too many days. It's too many days. I mean, the maximum, that you would even want to think about taking anything like that's 3 days. That's in my opinion. Okay.
Yeah, I agree.
Because you can't. The sodium is everything.
Now I'm gonna interject myself into this story, because I had just won the heavyweight class at the Junior Nationals in '95.
Right.
Ed Connor said, "Hey, come out, stay at my house for 2 weeks before the USA in Denver, Colorado." Before the USA, and I said, great. So I flew out there with my girlfriend at the time. I was staying in Ed's house, and sure enough, I mean, I think I did the Junior National. I got there on that Monday morning. I hear the door open to Ed's house. I thought it was Ed. It was not. It was Craig Titus. Craig came in. Craig had the key to Ed's house, and he used to sun himself on the roof naked. And that was the first time I met Craig Titus. And I looked at him, and I looked at my girlfriend at the time, and I said, I'm going to beat this guy. I was shredded. You know how hard I was for that show. I'm gonna freaking beat this guy. This guy's gonna win the USA. I could beat him. I said, because he wasn't hard. I knew he wasn't in shape, or he was a little off. I said, I don't know how this guy's gonna get himself in shape in a week. And obviously, he didn't win the show that year. He wasn't at his best. I didn't beat him, but maybe I should have.
Here's the thing, Dave. I want to talk about your condition, because I saw you, Roger saw you, my brother saw you, King Kamali saw you at that Nationals, and you hit what they call it now. We call it onion skin, but they call it dick skin now. Dude, you had that on your whole fucking body. There was not one part of your body that didn't have the thinnest skin. Your glutes were shredded all the way up. I mean, it was unreal. I mean, it really looked like you had the same look Dorian had. He just had different symmetry, but you had that kind of grainy, hard, dry look, and people were freaking out. They were like, "This guy's gonna be, pro like right away." Honestly, even Craig said your condition was nuts. He kept asking me if I knew what you were doing, and I know we'd always kind of talk here and there, but I never wanted to ask you that dumb shit. It's like he's got his own secrets. I'm pretty sure that we talked about some things.
There was no, and there was really no magic. It was just, I had good genetics, and then I dieted my freaking ass off, and I had good skin then. I was young, and I guess it is what it is, but in all fairness, you had the ability to be dry and hard. Now that is still a trick, and that's why Craig lost that show. Yes, absolutely.
Craig was flat because he tried to just do the shortcut. Look, I'm not saying he had to do the hell. Kamali calls it Hell Week because, Kamali called me the mad scientist. So I think the names kind of stick when he says it. He is King Kamali. And when we kind of think about, when you want to dial someone in for a show, well, there was a kind of what they call Hell Week is what I was doing to these guys, this extreme carb depletion and reloading. And I don't recommend it's like a Milos's training, you know what I'm saying? I don't recommend you do it unless I'm there or I can explain it to you in a way. It's not something you even do the whole time. It was something that would really bring some people ahead towards the last minute, and it would trick the water to get the water with the potassium loading and all that other stuff.
I also think that Craig just wasn't he needed to be pushed really hard that last 2 weeks to get himself peaked. He probably, looking back in retrospect, he probably wasn't listening to you 100% because he got cocky. And
no, he even told me. He said he's going to be fine the last month, and that, and then he told me he was going to stay at Ed's and he's going to do his own thing. What he said was, "Come out and party with me." I swear to God, I'm not lying. He said,
"No, he had it. Remember, he had his hair long and a ponytail. He was like living the rock star lifestyle."
Yeah, he's like, "I have plenty of girls there, man. I'll fly you. I'll pay for everything." He did. He was a very compensating client, or he did pay for everything. Yeah. But it was kind of part of the whole thing that you want me to be there, then that there's kind of, I obviously got to be around you. That's how it was. A lot of my high-end clients are like that, but he was kind of a lot of fun with it. And I honestly didn't want to go because my whole thing was I don't want people to think that I helped him if he wins, because I didn't.
Right.
I did. And Richard wanted to go because he likes bodybuilding. He's a big fan of bodybuilding, and Richard was a very smart man. He was a very intelligent person. He helped Jennifer, his wife, and she looked amazing. I don't want to compare him to Chad, but Chad worked with Kim and Richard worked with Jennifer. And Jennifer looked outstanding for where she was, and Richard knew a lot of other bodybuilders, including myself, who was bodybuilding at the time.
He knew everyone, because he used to call me up and he would give me like the gossip. He knew every little. He was like a pre-Chad, before Chad. He knew every little gossipy thing about everyone in the industry, and he was helping this one and that one and this person. He knew where the best growth hormone was and the best this and that. I don't know how he was so plugged in,
Well, I mean, Richard and I talked on a regular basis, and we had a friend called Tom who was a go-between. We could talk about this, but Richard knew a lot about growth hormone and stuff, because at that, way back when I was a teenager, I knew the senior chief of military medicine at Bethesda Naval Hospital. I was getting growth hormone before anyone in the whole world was, when it was first 192 protropin and then 191 by Humatrope. The Bethesda Naval Hospital is the president's hospital, and right across the street from it is National Institute of Health. Between these two places, no drug goes anywhere without it being there first. They had 600 bricks of Humatrope, and I was friends with her. He literally said, "Here's the paperwork. We really don't know how to take it. What do you think? How do you use it?" And that immense amount of paperwork, which was the equivalent of a couple of law library boxes, ended up being condensed into a pamphlet. They left quite a bit out, and some of the equations that I know have never been seen. And so this is why I understand a much deeper way that growth hormone works on the human body, not just what you read on the pamphlet, but there's levels to where it makes you grow. The initial level has to do with metabolism, and then slightly after that is muscle. And then beyond that, it goes on to organ and then bone. When we look at the equations on there, what we're looking at is bone. Bone is the maximum amount of human growth hormone that's needed in order for someone who's underdeveloped, who still hasn't had their bones heal, to reach the proper height that they should be, okay? This is far too much for bodybuilders. Anything over what's used to create muscle will go towards organ growth.
So having said that, and I've been saying this for years, not because I know the research, just because I know the observations I've seen, I always believe that anything, more than 4 IUs a day, you're kind of just, you're really spinning your wheels and wasting your money at that point, because you're not dealing with more muscle growth at that point.
The only time that you would ever have to go beyond, I say 3.5, but 4, whatever, okay? I mean, it does really matter. 0.5 does matter, and how you use it and where you use it. But let's say, for the sake of argument, 4 IUs. Who would go higher than that would be somebody who's already obtained the muscle mass to be in the 280-pound range. I've worked, and this is not saying that anything about what this person's regimen or anything like that, but I'm just going to say, Dave, you and I've worked closely with Tony Freeman since 1995, off and on. There were a lot of times where he was doing stuff with you, working with our Muscle Mag, right? No, MD. And he was telling me about some of the things, in all confidence. I would ask him what he said, that a lot of the other guys didn't know anything, but you knew what you were talking about. And every time we got to speak, we always agreed on the most most things. We never really got to talk about dosages too much, but we agreed on overall philosophies of things. You know what I mean?
Sure.
We even agreed that Nubank could be beneficial if somebody didn't abuse it. You know, I mean, there's a lot of things that could be beneficial, but they have to be taken with extreme caution. You know, I mean, just like no different than when you have your teeth removed. If they give you a prescription for Vicodin, you need to know that that's the end of it. You don't go looking for more. Right. You know what I mean? So it's the same thing. You have to have that same sort of discipline. Bodybuilders have that discipline. They shouldn't let it go. Craig let it go. You saw it. You saw it. He thought he was going to get everything handed to him, and this is what happened. I want you to know this because you probably saw this. Phil, and I did not know who Phil was, and I don't think Richard did either. I think Richard met him there. Okay, and Richard again was a nice man. I'm sorry, was a nice man.
He's dead now. He died of cancer just recently.
He died of colon cancer about a month and a half ago. Roger Stone's wife, told me when I was down there. Yeah. And you know, he would introduce himself, and you know, he would want to meet people, and you know, he would talk to them about some of the things that we were doing, I was doing, that was cutting edge, that had to do with growth and insulin, because Richard was on the inner circle of the people that had access to the Humatrope. He was one of those people that, you know, you could say I blessed. You know what I mean? There were, I'm serious, Dave. There were a few people that got their hands on this stuff, and through them, everybody, including Dorian, Kevin, they all got it through these people.
Oh, really? Because I remember Kevin telling me something about the Humatrope kits he used to. I don't think he even knew anything about it, but he knew, he definitely had access to it. Was it all coming through you at some point?
It was all coming through my friend. We would call him Doc, but I mean, the fact is that, and I don't want to get into this, but some of these guys were snitches, and they testified against him. He went to Leavenworth for 3 years.
Who did?
This guy.
Oh,
this
really?
Guy. Yeah. We'll call him, his name is Gary Riley. We called him Doc, okay? And
it's funny because I had a doc up in Westchester who used to get us Protropin kits. And we called him Doc, too. He was a real doctor, the guy, though.
Yeah. No, I mean, he was a senior chief of military medicine, and his wife ran the records. So, I mean, he said, I got 600 bricks. If you need, I'll get 600 more. Right. And literally, you know, we made somebody pro. He didn't have to pay for anything. He came from that area.
Really?
Couple of guys. One guy you competed against, he was also blessed through the grapevine. Willie, you know. There's a lot of people that were blessed through the grapevine. Craig also was being blessed through the grapevine, by the way. So everybody Craig knew for a while. You know, and I mean everybody in California, they were all, it was all from this. So you could see if everyone say, you know, what happened in the 90s? Here's what happened in the 90s for everybody to know. In the 90s, the people that looked crazy had real human growth hormone that came from my friend, okay?
Right. The Humatrope, yeah. Which was, there were 12 IU bottles, right?
And they were 90 in a box. I think.
And how much were people using at that point, you think? 2 to 3 IUs, right?
Dave, people were using what I told them to because nobody even heard of it.
Right, but I'm saying I don't think guys were using more than 3 IUs a day, right?
No, they weren't.
Too expensive anyway to do that.
No, I mean, and initially Don Long was using 1 IU. We broke up 1 IU into 3 shots. He took 1 before the workout for fat burning, and then 1 afterward with Humulin L, Lente, and then he took 1 more in the evening with his evening cardio. That's what we did in the very beginning, and I'll be honest with you, it was an experiment.
Yeah.
It was, you know, there's no question that it was.
All right, so let's flash forward back to the USA, 1995. Titus is backstage. Phil Hernan is backstage, who had placed second the year before that. Titus thinks he's going to win the show. He's got the long hair with the ponytail, very cocky.
He's going to win, you know?
It was Dave Palumbo's first show. I'm back there, a nervous wreck, pumping up, you know. Gerard Dente's back there, I remember. Tell us, so what happened? What did Richard Greenbaum do back there?
So, as you can see backstage, Phil Hernan looked good, right? Yeah. He's pumping up. He looks good. Richard's back there more helping Craig, correct? More helping Craig
than
anything?
I'd say so.
Okay, you'd say so. Nobody knows this, but the night before, Phil could not even walk. He was cramping so bad. He could not even walk. And he made a post about this Titus walking off stage. And listen, karma is a bitch, but it's fucking real, guys. It is real. I've been around some bad karmic motherfuckers, and they got it, man. So here's what happened. Richard, being a nice guy, goes to Phil because somebody tells him Phil's cramping. You know, back then, Richard was somebody that had knowledge, so people would be like, "Can you help? Can you help?"
Right.
Richard picks up the bat phone, whatever you want to call it, calls me up and says, "This guy's a really nice guy." He didn't say anything about same class as Craig, none of that shit. He didn't have any time. He's cramping really, really bad. He goes, "You gave me all this shit. Is there anything in here that you gave me for Craig that I can use to help him?" I told him what to do. Phil stopped cramping, looked amazing, won the show.
So you had some part in Craig losing, basically, is what you're saying. Yeah.
Well, Richard and I mean, we helped the guy out of the kindness of our heart.
Yeah.
Craig was at that time already overwhelmed with his own narcissistic opinion of himself, thinking that he was going to get something handed to him. He didn't work hard for it, and his values and his ethics caught up with him. And the guy who, wasn't supposed to be the winner, but he is really, really much more gifted. I mean, Phil, I ended up meeting him at the Night of Champions when Don came in third.
Yeah.
And I gotta say, man, although Phil wasn't on for that competition, I hear he forgot to diet, but but he's really he's genetically gifted. I mean, you know what I'm talking about. The guy's got slabs of fucking muscle.
And he was short. He was like 5'6" or something like that.
I think he might have been my height, maybe a little bit taller.
Yeah, he was a heavyweight. That's the people.
Heavyweight, unbelievable. I mean, he had just muscle on him. It was crazy. But if he would have been on or had better flair, better posing, he could have done well. He didn't have the muscle bellies of the top. That was the year it was Ronnie Coleman, Flex Wheeler, and Don Long, top three at the Night of Champions. Right.
Yeah, so to make a long story short, Craig went on the following year, obviously, to get his act together and won the USA. And I thought that was probably the best he ever looked. Wouldn't you say?
When he won the USA, yeah.
The following year.
From my understanding, he went ahead with the same thing that we did in '94. I met him later at the Ironman, and one year later at the Ironman when I was with Tony Freeman, and we spoke briefly for a little bit. I could tell that he was diminishing.
Yeah.
I could see at that point in his eyes that he no longer had the charisma. He didn't believe in himself anymore. I think drugs had defeated him at that point.
Right.
He smelled the cigarettes. Richard smoked, but Richard wasn't a bodybuilder, okay? So let's just put it in perspective. By the way, he didn't die of lung cancer or a heart attack. You figured he would, right? He died of colon cancer. And Jennifer has it right now, too.
Oh, really?
Yeah, Jennifer has it, too. So, and
That's weird.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. She really was an incredible female bodybuilder.
She was good, yeah. She was really good.
I mean, so it's just sad because when I knew Craig, he literally he owned everything. I mean, what I mean by that, and I know you know what I'm talking about, he had confidence in himself. He knew he was good looking. He had arrogance, but it was under control. This is, again, 94, 95, 96, okay? He did drugs, but he didn't get totally lost in it, okay? Now, after he started to lose his hair, I'm not sure whether that was genetic or it could have been. He did take an awful, god-awful amount of steroids. And by the way, and even Titus didn't take ridiculous amounts of growth because, again, when he met me, he took what I told him, and I had to kind of have him take. I had to have him take more because, he was on so much that I couldn't just drop it to what I normally do with most people. Right. But he ended up, still gaining muscle and losing fat like most people that I kind of give him this program.
But I'm glad you validated the fact that in the 90s, guys used 2-3 IUs a day of GH. People don't believe that nowadays because these guys are using 20 IUs of GH a day. And that just wasn't the case. And I told people, I said, all I ever used was 3 or, the most I think I tried was 4 IUs. I just didn't use a lot because no one did, and that's just the way it went. Even if you had access to it, that was the dosage guys used.
Yeah, it's so funny you say that, Dave, because somebody would get, let's say, 4 bricks, right? And they'd be like, cool, I've got enough to take for 6-9 months. They wouldn't be like, okay, great, I could take 28 IUs now.
Yeah.
Nobody fucking thought like that. It didn't matter if you were getting there. Like I said, there was a pro who got his stuff for free. Okay, he was basically sponsored by Doc. Okay, and even though we had unlimited amounts of whatever we wanted, we still knew that the human body could only process so much, and we also were worried about the true side effects. Yeah,
no one knew back then either what they were. So it was such a new drug. You know what? We're going to stop here, but this is so good. This historical perspective of how of the industry back in the 90s. I want to continue this with a part 2 next week because I think we have a lot. I don't want to jam in the ending, so to speak, because we still got a lot to talk about how we got to where we are today. I think this is almost like the evolution of the underworld of bodybuilding. Behind the scenes, what no one really knows about. So this was excellent. Once again, I want to thank you for that interview you hooked up with me with Roger Stone. This was truly interesting, and I want to get into more with the growth hormone and how that came about in the next episode. So let's stop here, and next week you could get maybe a red pair of shades on.
No, these are prescription color. Actually, I got the LASIK done.
Oh, you did.
It gives me the least amount of glare. I know it may seem like it's my trademark thing, but they actually are prescription color.
How did that surgery go for you?
It went really well. It was so many years ago. I think I did it in 1998.
Oh, I didn't know that. Okay, that long ago.
Yeah, and same surgery. I haven't had it redone. I just get a little bit of glare right now, and this color reduces the glare.
Gotcha. Yeah. All right. Well. Once again,
hold on. There you go. It's me.
Oh, okay. All right. Now I feel better. I feel better now. Are you going to be competing this year? Like I know you did a little show last year.
Yeah, I did. I competed in the Masters Classic Physique and won the overall.
Yeah.
It's possible. I think I will.
All right.
I think I will one more time.
You'll keep us updated.
I wanted to be a little bit heavier, and the last competition was more of something I just wanted to prove what could be done. So in 9 weeks, I put on 9 pounds and then competed and won. And then the rest of it went on to putting on 14 pounds total.
Wow.
Interesting.
All right. Time. Well, next week, we're going to continue this interview. We're going to stop here. That'll take us to the end of another episode of Live With, brought to you by Species Nutrition. Visit speciesnutrition.com. We have a coupon code now, AD25, until Sunday, 25% off. I'm Dave Palumbo, and we'll see you next time.